Welcome to another edition of Daily Airline News, focusing on the loss of Air India Flight 171. I'm Jeffrey Thomas, and I'm delighted to say joined once again by my co-host Richard Godfrey in Frankfurt. Good morning to you, Richard.
And good afternoon to you, Jeffrey.
Viewers, this episode is Maintenance Shock, episode 243. We've been overwhelmed with your response to yesterday's episode on VT-ANB maintenance record. Just to clarify and to answer a question from Ivan 05, we do not know what the issues were, nor what parts were used for the unscheduled maintenance. But we know there was an issue. How do we know, you ask? We took an extremely conservative view working this all out. Firstly, we counted a delay as 30 minutes after scheduled departure, whereas the international norm is 15 to 20 minutes. That's how we achieved the on-time performance for that aircraft. For the maintenance issues, we did not count the period from the 30-minute delay to 6 hours in our unscheduled maintenance. The unscheduled maintenance was only recorded for delays over 6 hours. It should also be noted that some systems can be down, such as the in-flight entertainment system, and the aircraft will still depart. So the actual maintenance issues for this aircraft could be far worse. The question is what was happening between the 30-minute mark and the 6-hour mark, which we did not count. Richard, your thoughts?
Yes, in the spreadsheet we provided in the description yesterday, you will see every flight, the scheduled departure and arrival time, and the actual departure and arrival time. And obviously, every airline operator wants to depart on schedule. The difference between the scheduled and the actual time is telling. We know that the average time for a stopover at an international destination is 2 hours and 47 minutes. And the average stopover back at the home base is 8 hours and 1 minute. And when the stopover is over 6 hours at an international airport and over 12 hours at the home base, and the departure of the next flight is delayed, then we know there was some sort of corrective maintenance going on. We track the flight hours, the flight cycles, and the calendar days for each and every flight, so we can see when the planned maintenance takes place. We only know the issue in specific circumstances when reported. For example, we know Air India Flight 117 from Amritsar to Birmingham, that was registration VT-ANO, automatically deployed its RAT at around 500 feet above the ground on final approach. That was on the 4th of October, as reported by the Federation of Indian Pilots, FIP. And Reuters reported on the 13th of October that India's aviation regulator had asked Air India to inspect an emergency power system on some of the Boeing Dreamliner aircraft. They're talking about the RAT deployment system. And they're referring in particular to the flight that where the RAT deployed earlier this month. The DGCA in India has also asked Boeing to submit a comprehensive report that outlines preventive measures that can be taken when a RAT deploys uncommanded. And the regulator said in a statement they want Boeing to provide details on similar uncommanded RAT deployments on 787s globally. And Reuters reported last week the DGCA had asked Boeing for more information on the particular incident on the 4th of October at Birmingham in Britain from the northern Indian city of Amritsar. We also reported another event with the LA at LAX on a LATAM Boeing 787 where the rat deployed. And in that case, the aircraft returned to LAX for an emergency landing without an issue. The pilots in both cases did not report any related abnormality and with the electrical system or the hydraulic system, and the aircraft landed safely in both cases and returned within 24 hours to commercial service. So the unexpected deployment has now come under scrutiny because obviously from the June 12th crash of Air India 787 Flight 171, the rat was deployed, and we now are concerned whether that was deployed for a reason or for no reason. So the jury is out on that one.
Richard, we now have a sample of reaction from our viewers. 55 Peter F. appears to be a shocking maintenance record, but to put it in perspective, how does the crash aircraft's record compare to the rest of the AI fleet? Surely there will be aircraft still flying regularly with similar histories, which is surely a concern. A comparison to a similar aged Air India 787 would be helpful. And Robert Campbell, 8955, it is as I feared some weeks ago. There were faults in the passenger cabin on the previous flight, and this plane was turned around, I assume after a cursory examination, in an unfit state to fly. I asked then and will ask again, did Air India do all its own maintenance or was any contracted out? Did other airlines use Air India facilities for any urgent maintenance needed on aircraft on the ground in India, or were any subcontractors shared by Air India and other airlines? If so, there could be a potential contagion. EK and EU authorities would be within their right to demand an independent inspection of any AI aircraft landing here or in Europe. Richard.
Yes. Well, Peter and Robert, we have published all that information for the whole fleet. For viewers new to the channel, I will include the Air India Boeing 787-8 fleet overview again in the description below. In the last 2 weeks, we've done a number of episodes on the maintenance record of Air India across the entire fleet of all 27 aircraft in the 787-8 aircraft fleet. So we started on the 30th of September, episode 228, which was entitled Air India Maintenance Record. And then episode 230 on the 2nd of October was entitled Wake Up Call. Episode 231, Layers of the Onion. 233, Before and After the Crash. And episode 234, Maintenance Logs Edited. And episode 23.5, Signing Off Maintenance. So a lot of stuff been covered in recent weeks. The age of every aircraft in the Boeing 787-8 fleet is included, and the average age is 11.0 years, and the range is from 8.0 to 13.1 years. And in the last year, these 27 aircraft have conducted 13,096 flights. That's an average of 485 flights per year for each aircraft. And post the crash on the 12th of June 2025, a DGCA audit of Air India, more broadly, not restricted to 787s, uncovered 51 safety lapses. And since the crash on the 12th of June, 18 aircraft from the 787-8 fleet have been in extensive maintenance. And the fleet average maintenance has gone up 204% in the 108 days after the crash compared with the 108 days before the crash. Air India saw customers' complaints about the state of the cabins. Air India saw delays on departure at around 17% of aircraft delayed over 3 hours. And Air India saw 4%, that's 516 flights, of their flights resulted in aircraft stuck overseas. And that resulted in flights being delayed 24 hours or cancelled altogether. Sometimes replacement aircraft were flown in, and the designated aircraft would be flown without passengers back to an engineering base. Aircraft were most frequently stuck in Dubai and Paris, and quite a few in Milan and Melbourne, but a total of 22 different airports. And maintenance work has been done in places other than in India. At Singapore Airlines in Singapore, Etihad in Abu Dhabi, Cathay in Hong Kong, Aramco in Amman, and Air India is now building a new MRO facility in Bengaluru. Maintenance work is usually carried out by the government-owned Air India Engineering Services Limited, AIESL, and we have compared AIESL to other MRO operators. They are, of course, at AIESL much cheaper, but other operators are 5 times more productive and much more reliable. And Air India are now moving away from AIESL and bringing maintenance back in-house more and more.
Yeah. Nathan, 1976. And they're flying as we speak. 2 years ago, I said, I hope one of those 787s doesn't fall out of the sky after whistleblower tales. 2 years on, I found myself saying, I hope it doesn't happen again. No wonder the staff are calling in sick. And Guy, UK, I am stunned by A&B maintenance. Why was this aircraft not pulled from the line instead of actually being ridden hard? Smacks of complete lack of management oversight. And Joe Kostica, 1298, Air India obviously had an internal culture regarding maintenance that was not good. Whether we're seeing incompetence or willful neglect really doesn't matter because the numbers don't lie. Finally caught up with Air India is a sad indictment indeed. How does such a failing system pass audits and inspections, assuming such auditors and inspectors aren't affected by the same cultural failings? I make the observation and ask the question as an auditor myself, who performed many internal audits relative to ISO certification. Richard, some pretty powerful comments there from our viewers on the state of that maintenance.
Yeah, indeed, very powerful comments. And we have also been contacted by whistleblowers, current and former employees of Air India and of AIESL. And they recount horror stories. But we have only published incidents where we have been able to corroborate the information. I don't think this is willful neglect, although I have to point out some maintenance records have been manipulated, and that has been pointed out by the DGCA. India does not compare favorably with other global operators, and it is way behind on productivity and reliability. Air India has failed audits and has been fined up to $127,000 US on 11 occasions in the last year. They were pulled up and fines were levied. Air India currently has 190 aircraft in operation and has ordered 380 new aircraft from Airbus and Boeing. And scaling from 190 up to 570 aircraft is extremely ambitious. And whether Air India will be successful in doing so depends on a number of critical factors, especially the ability to properly maintain all these 570 aircraft.
Yeah, it's a big ask. William Sharp, 5973, it doesn't make sense that the entire aircraft would come from the factory full of problems, nor does it make sense that this single aircraft would have so many more problems than any other. If problems are being induced or normal issues further complicated by maintenance, it would seem to be a problem not limited to one aircraft. Also, are problems all over the map or focused on one or two areas with repeated problems? Any experience reflecting similar problems in aviation, a la the long-standing Hangar Queen moniker? I've looked at the file but don't see the data items I would think would be helpful to narrowing things down to something that rings a bell. He's talking about looking at your file, Richard.
Yeah.
Richard, I think William means the actual maintenance performed.
Yeah. Well, William, we keep saying the AAIB India should publish the maintenance records. This is not issues with aircraft coming from the factory in the US where they're manufactured. This is aircraft coming from the engineering base in India where they are maintained. And the first problem is that the maintenance records do not exist in one central database in India. India is migrating to the AMOS maintenance system from old paper records, spreadsheets, and local databases. And you correctly point out that we do not know exactly what corrective maintenance work was done on each of the 799 maintenance sessions, totaling 2,981 man days of work in the last year. We do not know why an aircraft went back into maintenance directly following a maintenance session and how much work was new issues discovered or fixing again issues that were already supposed to have been fixed but not fully tested. We would like to include at least the ATA 100 ISPEC 2200 reference in each maintenance case. And that will enable us to ring the bells, as you put it, because the ATA spec tells you exactly which part of the aircraft was being maintained and the reference number to the ATA 100 chapters. So let me ring a couple of bells for you right now. The first bell, the DGCA has asked Boeing for a comprehensive report on uncommanded RAT deployments. And the second bell is that the AAIB India has documented an in-flight dual engine shutdown on the crash aircraft Flight 171 during takeoff. And the purpose of our deep dive into the crash aircraft, VT-ANB, was to see exactly how much maintenance had gone on in the last 3 years, as opposed to just 1 year that we looked at previously. And the AAIB in the preliminary report only mention one previous and one future maintenance activity. So there's a lot more to be found out about the maintenance record. And I think we have uncovered a long-standing issue on both the crash aircraft and the Air Boeing 787-8 fleet. And that already sounds alarm bells for me.
Sure does. Richard, we have a couple of questions about the RAT. We're talking about the RAT. We've got a couple of questions and the engine restart. Rajiv Shangon Info, repeating the question, Dear Jeffrey, a question for Dear Richard. You stated for igniting the engines of a Boeing 787-8, it needs AC power for igniters. So, in the case of dual engine flaming out for any reason during the flight, It's no way to reignite them with 28-volt DC main battery, even a single engine, unless APU activation or RAT activation, which finally supplies the AC power to the system. But you as well said several times that the main battery could only support single engine reignition. Please explain.
Well, it's difficult, but I'll try. The sources of AC power on a Boeing 787 are the two engines and the APU. That's the normal sources. If both engines and the APU are all shut down, then the only source of AC power is the RAT, and the RAT takes 10 seconds to come online electrically. In the meantime, the main battery, which is DC, not AC, and the APU battery, they provide DC power. But the DC power can be converted to AC power using static inverters. And it actually also works the other way around. AC power can be converted to DC power using the trues. Now, for engine relight, the igniters require AC power. The igniters can be supplied by the main battery via a static inverter. The capacity of the battery is not designed to supply the igniters for two engine relights. The main battery is not designed to sustain high power AC ignition loads for extended periods. Its capacity is sufficient for one engine relight attempt, but not two full sequences. And especially if other essential systems are drawing power in that 10 seconds, flight control actuators, displays, flight control computers, etc. Once the RAT is online and stable, AC power becomes sufficient for continued ignition and fuel controls. So I hope that answers your question. If not, come back with another one.
Glenn Cox, 3986. If the RAT deployed accidentally and there were no electrical bus failures of any kind, would the power be switched over to the RAT automatically anyway? My thinking is that just switching all the bus power to the RAT would, for just 1 second, cut the fuel to both engines, as there would be no electrical power at all during the switchover. The engines would go into the automatic relight procedure once the RAT connected to the electrical buses without anyone touching anything in the cockpit, although the FDR would record this as a fuel cut-off and cut-on events. On the two recent accidental RAT deployments, did the power switch over as well, or did the RAT just deploy? Thank you both. Keep up the great work. Richard, interesting question.
Yeah. Well, first of all, a RAT deployment uncommanded and without reason cannot cause engine failure on a Boeing 787. If the RAT deployed uncommanded and without reason, it indicates a fault in the RAT deployment logic or electrical sensing circuitry within the electrical power management system, the EPMS. During the switchover period, the main battery ensures power continuity to the essential DC buses and through the static inverters to the essential AC buses. The FADEC, the full authority digital engine control, will automatically enter an engine relight mode when conditions permit. And while the PMA, the permanent magnet alternator, powers the FADEC once the engine is rotating, if the engine is not turning, the FADEC is temporarily powered from the aircraft's DC system via the main battery until the PMA becomes active. And each FADEC also contains a small internal lithium-ion backup battery, providing short-term independent power to ensure uninterrupted control logic and data continuity during transient power interruptions or switching events. This internal cell maintains FADEC operation during brief losses of either PMA or aircraft DC power, preventing a control system reboot. And I'd like to list a few references. The Boeing 787 Aircraft Maintenance Manual, 732100, the Engine Electronic Control Description and Operation, the GE Aviation GEnx 1B Maintenance Manual, 732100, that's the section number, Electronic Engine Control System Description, and there's also a training manual and an electrical power system description from Boeing and from GE, respectively. And they go into details on RAT deployment logic and automatic power transfer sequencing. So if you get hold of those four manuals, you'll understand completely what's going on.
And we'll actually put that fine detail into the description below. Anybody wants to follow them up.
Yeah.
Purple Peter Eaters, J8J. Gentlemen, this is infuriating. How does Air India not pull Boeing into help on all issues VT-ANB was having? This was a huge red flag and a catastrophe waiting to happen. It had to be 1/2 recurring issues never repaired correctly. I get that issues develop on new aircraft and ADs, SBs get issued and must be followed, but this was obviously much more serious. There has to be some maintenance circumstances where the manufacturer needs to be brought in for proper resolution. That's an interesting comment, Richard.
It is. And they have been. India has concluded a $400 million deal with Boeing to retrofit all its Boeing 787-8 fleet. So all 26 787-8s will go through this retrofit program. And that's not just new interiors and new seats in three classes, business, premium, and economy. It is an upgrade of all the aircraft systems and avionics to the latest standards. And Air India are investing heavily in upgrading their Boeing 787-8 fleet. And we have reported that the first aircraft, VT-ANT, flew to the Boeing facility in Victorville, California on the 23rd of July, 2025. And a second aircraft is planned to go for retrofit to Victorville this month. And both should be back in service by mid-December 2025. But it will take until mid-2027 for all aircraft to go through this retrofit program.
So, WOG 68, I want to know if new parts were not only procured but actually replaced during each maintenance and not sold by acts of fraud, theft, or embezzlement. I want to know who are the buyers of this brand new as well as used parts, how far the trail goes, and who benefited by it. More time on maintenance and frequent maintenance may include a scam to get more overtime. It's pretty heavy duty, Richard.
It is indeed very heavy duty and opens up a big can of worms. You raise a series of issues that we don't have full visibility on. However, in civil aviation, certainly a part of the activity is illegal, and that is when it's unapproved, or i.e., no production or repair approval, when it's misrepresented, forged documents and no traceability on the performance claims, or stolen or installed outside approved dates. Regulators group these under suspected unapproved parts, SUPs, until verified. The FAA's SUP program and the EASA's SUP process publish alerts and case lists when evidence crosses that threshold. What makes these parts so insidious is that the paperwork is the product, so to speak. An 8130-3 FAA or an EASA Form 1 purporting to prove origin, airworthiness, and configuration can be forged convincingly, and convincingly enough to pass receiving inspection, especially in a fragmented, broker-heavy market where tear-down used parts circulate globally and MROs are battling against long lead times on new parts. The 2023 to 2024 AOG Technics case showed forged certificates attached to CFM56 and CF6 engine parts, forcing operators and MROs into a forensic audit of supply chains. And a UK High Court compelled disclosure of AOG's sales history and documentation. Over decades, the FAA has issued hundreds of unapproved part notifications, UPNs, typically a few to a few dozen per year, covering everything from engine bushings to landing gear components. And the AOG Technics cluster affected well under 1% of CFM engines in service, yet it triggered costly removals, inspections, and grounded aircraft while fleets were traced and scrubbed. That's the huge paradox. Numerically small share of illegal activities, but outsized operational impact. In 2024, titanium stock with falsified certification entered portions of the Boeing and Airbus supply chains via a sub-tier route. And OEM said in-service safety wasn't compromised and suspect material was pulled from undelivered aircraft. Sanctions have created parallel pressures. Russia's post-2022 access constraints spawned grey import routes and cannibalization, and open source tallies show a rise in incidents, an environment where unapproved parts the risk increases. The operational reality is about 1% contamination in the entire global aircraft fleet, but that can ripple across global schedules as engines and other aircraft systems are pulled and records reconstructed.
Yeah, it's a major, major problem that, and we touched on that with the Lion Air angle of attack sensors a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
So Gale Air 146, initially I'm very surprised at the comprehensive list of maintenance issues experienced by this relatively new and modern long-haul aircraft. However, I'm no expert and would be very interested to see a comparison between this Air India 787 and a similar model of the same age operated by another carrier. I'm aware that engine issues have caused other operators to have problems with their aircraft, and a direct comparison with an airline having a good reputation for maintenance would prove enlightening. Thanks for your efforts to date on this issue, Richard.
Yeah, well, we have compared the entire Air India Boeing 787-8 fleet with other fleets of a similar size and age. We looked at ANA and JAL and Qatar Airways and American Airlines and a few more. All the other major carriers have their own MRO directly owned facilities. We have discussed the global facilities of Lufthansa Technik, the Tulsa facility of American Airlines, the largest single MRO facility in the world, the San Francisco facility of United Airlines, the engineering base of Etihad in Abu Dhabi. Emirates Aviation actually has a university and an Emirates Engineering Training College, which are coupled with the Emirates MRO facility. And among comparable 787 operators, Air India is the only major carrier whose engineering and MRO capability is not fully vertically integrated with a university linked or in house training and research facility. So, in contrast, airlines like Emirates, Etihad, Qatar, Lufthansa, the major US operators who have directly owned MRO bases that are physically and organizationally coupled with dedicated training centers or even aviation universities.
Teresa Corrigan, 3076. There was a video made just before this flight. The passenger was complaining about no air conditioning, electrical things, maybe the tip of an electrical iceberg. Richard.
Yeah, you're very right, Teresa. It was the tip of an electrical iceberg. And we have included a link in the description below to the YouTube video that you shared so that viewers can see for themselves what the passengers were complaining about.
So, Richard, let's finish with this very telling comment from Carl Skrivanik, 5687. Maintenance is the handwriting of an airline.
Yeah. And that's what we're trying to do is look at the handwriting and see what's going on with the airline.
Yeah. So, Richard, thank you very much indeed for this answering these questions. It's really been fantastic. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Viewers, we'll be back tomorrow looking at Air India further. We won't tell you what just yet, but it'll be fascinating, I can assure you. So please do join us tomorrow. Please subscribe to us. Please like us. Please join us. Please keep those wonderful comments coming and keep those fabulous questions coming. We really do appreciate them, and we do read them all. I can promise you that. And they're really great. And the comments, the supportive comments, are really wonderful, and we do appreciate them very much indeed. So look forward to your company tomorrow. Thank you very much.